Okay, in this video we are going to look at our first video on algebra, year 11 revision series on algebra, and it's going to be on formula and equations. Okay, they pop up quite a bit in the HSC, so it's good to quickly recap this topic. So first thing to recap is substitution. 2 lines at least when you show substitution. Your first line should be the substitution, replacing all the letters with numbers. And then line 2 is when you write your answer to whatever accuracy they tell you to, and make sure you include units if there are units in the question. One important thing when you're substituting that they always try and get you on is if you're substituting a negative number, you need brackets in your calculator. So here's an example. M is -9. What's the value of that? So first line you would substitute in, include your hidden timeses. So there's a hidden times there and the hidden times there. So 3 times bracket -9 all squared plus 5 times bracket -9 over 6. Put in your calculator, you get 33. Just a key note, if you didn't use brackets, you'd get the answer wrong. And the particular reason is because of this m squared, this -9 squared. If you don't use brackets, you get the wrong answer. Okay, next we're going to look at solving equations. We're going to have a look at some tricky ones. If you've got one equation with one fraction, my suggestion is make the left side one fraction, no extra bits, then multiply by the denominator to remove the fraction. Okay, and also if you're solving equations where you've got pronumerals on both sides of the equation, move all the terms with the letters on the pronumerals over to the left side. Okay, let's do a question. So what's the value of x here? So first step, I'd times by 3 both sides. So 6 times, so timesing by 3 on the left will remove that over 3, and timesing by 3 over here would make that 18. Now, in order to remove this 5, remember it's +5, same thing. So you got to do the opposite, you -5 from both sides. So we get -x is equal to 18 take 5, which is 13. If -x is 13, well, +x must be -13. Okay, the way you can think about this is you're dividing both sides by -1, because it's -1 times x. Okay, and you get -13. A. Next, so here I've got an equation. First thing I see is I see one fraction. I like to get that one fraction by itself on the left side. So I don't like that -4. I'm going to +4 to both sides. Okay, and if I +4, it'll add to that 5. So it'll be 9 minus 7x's. And then we got 5x at +1 over 3. And then what's nice, because the left side is one fraction, we can multiply both sides by 3. And multiplying by 3 on the left will remove that over 3. Multiplying by 3 on the right, I'll use brackets because both parts need to be times by 3. Expand the brackets. 3 times 9 is 27. 3 times 7 is -21x. Okay, now we've got x's on both sides, so let's move the x's over to one side. I think the easiest way here, there's a -21x. To undo that, we +21x to both sides. So we're going to get 26x plus 1 equals 27. Now it's just a matter of minusing 1 to both sides. And that'll be 26. So 26x is equal to 26. And then to undo that times, we divide. 26 over 26, which is just 1. The answer to that one was 1. 3 marks for that in the HSC. So there can be a lot of marks just for your ability to solve equations. So make sure you know how to do it. If there's more than one fraction, these can be a little bit tricky. My suggestion is make a common denominator first before proceeding. So here I've got a 5 and a 2. So the easiest way to make a common denominator is to times those two together. So 10. So I want to make everything with a denominator of 10. So to make this first bit out of 10, I need to times that 5 by 2. And what I do at the bottom of the fraction, I do the top of the fraction. So that'll be 4x over 10. Okay, for this +1, I want it to be over 10. Okay, to make that over 10, well, at the moment it's over 1. We need to times top and bottom by 10. So that'll be 10 over 10. It's the same as 1. And then this bit here, to make it 10 we need to times by 5. Because there's two terms there that I'm timesing, I'll put in brackets. So 5 bracket 3x plus 1 over 10. Okay, now because these two fractions here both have the same denominator, you can add the numerators and leave the denominator. Okay. What's nice is that when both sides of the equation have the same denominator at a 10, you can times both sides by 10, and what that does is effectively knock out, if you times by 10, it effectively knocks out that denominator. Yeah, you don't need to show that. You can just straight away. Think about it. If you've got a fraction and they've both got the same denominator, the top must be equal. Okay, so you can just knock out those denominators. All right, expand this bracket here. So that'll be 15x plus 5. Make sure you don't forget to times the second one in the bracket by what's out the front. Okay, so now we've got x's on both sides. We don't like that. So we're going to bring the x's over to the one side. Now, up to you what you do here. You can minus 15x to both sides. But what I don't like about minusing 15x is that that'll get a negative in front of the x. I don't like that. So instead of minusing, I'll minus the smaller one. I'll minus 4x from both sides. That removes the x's from here. We've got a 10 equals, and that'll be 9x plus 5. Okay, I like the x being on the left side, so I'm going to switch sides quickly. Minus 5 from both sides. Move that plus 5 over, minus 5, so that's going to be 9x is equal to 5. Divide both sides by 9. So x is going to be 5 over 9. It says leave your answer as a fraction. Okay. We've already talked about brackets. Expand the brackets first. Solving equations after substitution. This is common in the HSC as well. They'll tell you what to substitute in, and you'll have one letter left, and that's an equation with one letter. You solve for that one letter. So here's an example of converting between Fahrenheit and degrees. We want to know 3 degrees to Fahrenheit. So the key thing is to note that 3 degrees Celsius is not, which letter is it? Is it F or is it C? So it's degrees Celsius, and that's C. So C is 3. So substitute that in. We get 3 equals 5 over 9 bracket F minus 32. Okay. So how do we proceed from here? There's a few different ways to do it. One thing that you can do is expand the bracket, so I'll do it that way. So 5 over 9f minus, now 5 over 9 times 32, you can put that in your calculator, you can get 160 over 9. Okay, I'm going to switch sides. And notice there's a common denominator here of 9. So we can write over 9 like that. Okay. So now we've got one fraction on the left multiplied by the denominator. 9 times 3 is 27. So add 160 to both sides. And then divide through by 5. Okay. And if you want, you can put that in your calculator and get a decimal. I'm going to leave it as a fraction here. Next one. Volume of a sphere is given by this. R is the radius of the sphere. If volume is 220, find the radius to 1 dp. Okay, so volume is 220, that's V. Substitute into the rule, 220 equals 4 over 3 pi r cubed. Okay, now when you got a fraction times by one term there, it's the same as just putting all over 3 there. And the pi r cubed is in the numerator. So that's a nice way of writing it, because then you can see, oh, that's one fraction, I can times by 3 straight away. So timesing by 3, we get 220 times 3 is 660, and then I'll divide by 4 pi in one hit. I'll just write both of them down the bottom of the fraction. That's r cubed. Now to undo a cube, you do the cube root. To undo a cube, you would do a cube root. Because it's an odd power, you don't need the plus minus, but if it's an even power, you put a plus minus out the front, but because it's odd, we don't put the plus minus. Okay, and then you put that in your calculator, and when you put that in your calculator, you get it's 3.7. Yep, 3.7, and units is going to be centimeters for the radius, and that's 1 dp. Okay, next question. These are the ones that students find quite difficult. Changing the subject of the formula. And the reason why is because there's not a lot of numbers. You're dealing with a whole bunch of letters. Okay, so often they put this as a hard multiple choice. Some students can work out little tricky ways of substituting numbers in for each letter and then testing. So that's not a bad way. If you can't work it out, just put in some numbers for the letters and guess. So, like, you know, for example, in this one, you'd put in random numbers for U, T, and A, and work out what S has to be, and then work out which one of the answers matches. But ideally, you know how to do this step by step. So, first thing is swap sides so that the letter you want it to be the subject is on the left, and then solve for the new subject. Okay, so if I want A to be the subject, I want eventually A equals blah. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get to. So my first step is switch sides. That'll be ut plus half at squared equals to s. Okay, now I want to isolate A, so everything far away from A needs to move. Okay, so firstly, there's a whole other term here, ut, that's got to go. So in order to remove that, I'm going to minus ut for both sides. So by doing that, I get half at squared equals s minus ut. All right, now we need to start working on fixing this up. Now a half times by one term, that's the same as at squared over 2. Okay, it's one fraction, so I'm gonna remove the divide 2 by timesing by 2. I'm gonna put brackets. Okay, you might be tempted to expand the brackets, but when you look at the solutions here, some of them have brackets in it, so I'm gonna leave the brackets for the moment, and if I need it later, I'll expand later. Okay, so last step, it's times by t squared, so we're gonna divide by t squared. And we've got A as our subject. So looking at the answers, it's going to be A. Okay, next one. This one. R is the subject. Okay. So look, before I start, I noticed none of these answers have brackets, so I'm definitely going to expand the brackets. So 800 minus 800 times R. Okay. I want R to be the subject, but I notice there's a negative in front of this number that's in front of R. So I don't like that. So what I might do is I actually might plus 800R to both sides straight away. Okay. So what that does, so I'd have a 800R plus S equals 800. It's kind of nice. R's now on the left side, so I don't need to switch sides. Okay. I need to deal with the thing further away from R now, which is this plus S. Okay. We're trying to isolate R. So I minus S from both sides, I get 800R is equal to 800 minus S. And then I don't like that times by 800, so I'm going to divide by 800 both sides. Okay, so dividing by 800 here, knock that out. And dividing by 800 here, we'll get R is 800 minus S over 800, which is, hey. Next question, make L the subject. So first step, we'll switch it so that L's on the left-hand side. I don't like this 2 pi times, so do the opposite of timesing divide, right at the bottom of the fraction. And then we're going to use the fact that if something squared, I'll call it x, if x squared is equal to some number, then x is the plus minus square root of that number. Okay, whenever there's an even power and you're undoing it, you put a plus minus. Okay, so if it's x squared equals something, x, the original x will be plus and minus that. Okay, think in your head, if x is, if say x squared is 4, well, x could be 2, because 2 times 2 is 4, but x could also be negative 2, because negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. Okay, so there's two answers, plus minus 2 for that particular one. So this one, L is going to be plus minus root t over 2 pi, and make sure that root covers the whole thing. You need the plus minus to get full marks. I'm not going to give you full marks if you don't. Make y the subject of this, so y is over here, so we're going to switch sides. Okay, so we've got this big square root. Okay, if you've got a square root on one side, you need to undo it. What's the opposite of square rooting? Squaring. We take both sides and we square it. Okay, so if you square a square root, it goes away. And x squared is, well, it's just x squared. You don't need the brackets there. If it's just one term squared, you don't need the brackets. Okay, so now I need to isolate y. I'm going to look at the thing further away from y on the same side, which is the minus 1, and I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Okay, so yp is going to be x squared plus 1. And last step, to make y the subject, I need to remove this p from the left. It's timed, so we divide. And to divide, we write over. So there's y as the subject, x squared plus 1 over p. You can write that if you want as 1 plus x squared over p, same thing.